From beginning to end, it took me 40 years to actually figure out my life and grow up.
Things never came easy to 45-year-old Keith Carlson.
I didn't have a father, so my mother pretty much raised my sister and I. I grew up okay, grandparents at first, and then I started hanging out with friends, in early teens, and the wrong side of the road is where it comes down to. How I started to get in the criminal system. To start it off, I started selling drugs, stealing cars, gangbanging, doing all the crazy stuff that Young and Wild does. First time were a bunch of burglaries where I broke into garages and stole stuff and sold them for drugs. Sold a lot of drugs when I got them. First time I went to prison, I was 19. It was for 12 pounds of marijuana.
Keith struggled with dealing drugs and drug abuse, which led to a conviction and prison sentence.
I did 17 months for that. I got out of prison, continued to sell drugs, didn't get no job, didn't do nothing like that. Sold drugs, I switched to cocaine.
Eventually, he would find himself in prison multiple times throughout his life.
That was in 2002 to 2003. When I first went to prison, I got into a fight in prison and I ended up shoving a broom down somebody's throat. Being locked up for 1 year in solitary confinement is you have no TV, you have no recreation. You get out of your cell for 1 hour and that's to exercise and shower, and that's it.
In 2008, Keith moved to Slayton, Minnesota with his prison pen pal, who later became his wife. After divorcing his wife, he found his new rock in life, Paula. Keith never thought he would ever get a second chance. At the darkest time of his life, his public defender, Cecil, gave him a life-changing gift.
Well, my name is Cecil Knotts. I'm a public defender. I happen to be the managing public defender for the Marshall area, and I've done that since 1983. Well, when I first saw Keith's case, I got his case much the same as I get everyone's case. They appear in court and then they are appointed a public defender. I happen to be appointed as Keith's public defender. Well, he was charged with a first-degree controlled substance crime sale, which is about the most serious as you can get in a controlled substance crime, and facing a lot of prison time.
Keith found his faith, and it kept him protected during the hard times.
As that year passed and he was progressing himself, setting up programming and starting SMSU, by the end of that year and by the time he was sentenced, I thought, yeah, this guy's got a chance to make it if he keeps it up.
He would not be going back to prison.
The one piece of information, if they can get one piece of information from me, I did my job. It served its purpose. That's the best part about speaking, telling my story, because I tell it all over. I tell it at NA meetings, I tell it at halfway houses, I tell it at churches, I tell my story. That's what I do, because I'm not afraid of it, I've learned from it, and I'm growing from it. So if one person can understand anything from this, I did my job.
However, things would change for Keith Carlson. On April 15, 2016, Keith found himself back in jail for a parole violation. What once was a story of a second chance turns into a story about how one bad choice can change your life, but does not define who you are.
Even somebody like Keith, who is doing very well, it's very hard, having been a previous addict, to not have a slip or a relapse at some point. It could happen 6 months down the road. It could happen 5 years down the road. You got to expect that. You got to prepare for it, at least psychologically, because it can happen at any time, even to somebody that's doing well.